The Senate will come to order. Today, the presentation of the colors will be by Boy Scout Troop 645. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Both the colors of the great United States of Colorado. Color guard, about face. Turn right. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, color guard seat. Please help me thank them after I let you know who they are, or before. Life Scouts Everett Arnold, Andrew Jung, Joe Ort and John Ort, Star Scout Andrew Phillips, First Class Scout Shiv Ghosh, and Tenderfoot Aiden Phillips. Now, please thank them. Mr. Majors, please take the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Balmer, Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, John, Johnston, Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez Humenic, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Scott, Sonnenberg, Stedman, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods. Mr. President.
Here. 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused. We have a quorum. Senator Donovan.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, February 12th, be dispensed with and the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The aye has it. The motion is adopted. The Journal is approved. Committee reports.
February 12, 2015, Committee on Education. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 132 be postponed indefinitely. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 8 be amended as follows and as amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 18 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 115 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 111 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 32 be amended as follows and as amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 13, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 97 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 12, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 119 before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 12, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 90 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 12, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 141 be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations. February 12, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 105 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 12, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill or House Bill 1039 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 12, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 103 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 12, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 123 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
February 13, 2015, correctly engrossed, Senate Bills 58, 99, 100, and 161, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 77, correctly enrolled, Senate Bills 10, 108, 112, 167, 168, 169, and 170.
Introduction of resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 9?
Senate Joint Resolution 9 by Senator Newell concerning the establishment of February as Fibroid Awareness Month.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Joint Resolution 9 lay over to February 17.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate Joint Resolution 9 will lay over until February 17th. Third reading of bills. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 61?
Senate Bill 61 by Senator Holberg concerning the non-applicability of disclosure requirements under Colorado law governing campaign finance in the case of certain issue committees that raise relatively small amounts of money.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 61 lay over to February 17.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 61 will lay over until February 17th. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 161.
Senate Bill 161 by Senator Lambert and Representative Hamner concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Revenue.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 161 on third reading and final passage.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 161? Is there any discussion? Are there any no votes? Minority Leader Carroll. Senator Guzman. Senator Ulibarri. Senator Jones. Senator Merrifield. Senator Johnston. Senator Kafalis. Senator Newell. Senator Hodge. Senator Aguilar. Senator Todd. Further no votes. Senator Garcia. Further no votes. Senator Heath. Senator Donovan. Senator John. Senator Kerr. With 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 161 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Majority Leader Scheffel. Senator Lundberg. Senator Woods. Senator Crowder. Senator Neville. Senator Marble. Senator Baumgardner. Please have the President. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 100.
Senate Bill 100 by Senator Stedman and Representatives Foote and McCain concerning implementation of recommendations of the Committee on Legal Services in connection with legislative review of rules and regulations of state agencies.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 100 lay over to February 17.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 100 will lay over until February 17th. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 58.
Senate Bill 58 by Senator Guzman and Representative Kagan concerning statewide policies and procedures for law enforcement agencies that conduct eyewitness identifications.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 58 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 58 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Minority Leader Carroll, Senator Ulibarri, Senator Aguilar, Senator Donovan, Senator Heath, Senator John, Senator Cook, Senator Kerr, Senator Roberts, Senator Merrifield, Senator Newell, Senator Garcia, Senator Todd, Senator Hodge, Senator Stedman, Senator Johnston, Senator Kafalis. We got you. Senator Todd. For sure, for sure. Further co-sponsors. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 99.
Senate Bill 99 by Senator Cook and Representative Lawrence concerning eliminating certain duties for probation officers.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of Senate Bill 99 on third reading and ask for and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 99? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 99 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Roberts, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Guzman, Senator Grantham, Senator John, General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Neville will take the chair.
Yes, Mr. President.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles to all bills on the General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 142 by Senator Roberts and Representative Pabon concerning a change of state law to make requirements for monies held in escrow for the payment of ad valorem property taxes the same as the requirements of the Federal Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act of 1974. House Bill 1017 by Representatives Hamner and Buck and Senator Roberts concerning non-governmental volunteer fire departments in Colorado and in connection therewith enacting the Volunteer Fire Department Organization Act.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee adopt all of the bills on the general order, second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 142 and House Bill 1017, and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of all bills of the General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills in the consent calendar are adopted. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the body to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The The Senate will come back to order. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 13, 2015, Mr. President, your committee of the whole basic reports under consideration of the following tax bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 142 passed on second reading and ordered in gross, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1017 passed on second reading and ordered revised, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 15142 passed on second reading and ordered in gross and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 151017 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General Order, second reading of bills. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of the general order second reading of bills calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders second reading of bills. Senator Neville will take the chair.
Committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate. Oh, let's see. Majority Leader Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that Senate Bill 122, Senate Bill 139, and Senate Bill 135 each lay over to February 17.
Proper motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is adopted. House Bill 151052. Mr. Majors, would you please read the bill?
House Bill 1052 by Representatives Carver and Melton and Senator Todd concerning eligibility to receive a grant from the Military Family Relief Fund.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and happy Valentine's weekend and happy President's Day weekend. I move House Bill 1052 and want to address what this simple bill is. We have talked about eligibility for Military Family Relief Fund. This started many years ago. Thank you, Senator from Aurora, one of my fellow colleagues, for bringing this forward, and it's been so helpful to so many families. And all we did is tweak this a little bit because under current law, a member of the Colorado National Guard must be involuntarily mobilized for at least 30 days on active duty for the military or called to state active duty by executive order of the governor for a member of his family or her family to receive any of the benefits. What we did is we eliminated that requirement by mobilizing orders be involuntary. This bill expands grant eligibility to all members of the Colorado National Guard subject to active military duty for a minimum of 30 days. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body. I'm sorry, Senator Crowder.
Yeah, I looked at this bill and I think I'm going to be in support of it. I think it's a good bill. Surprise, surprise.
No, it is.
I just, I think it's long overdue, and I just thought I'd come and tell you I supported it. Thank you.
Is there any, Senator Todd?
I believe that's it. I just asked for an aye vote on supporting our military families and giving them the additional assistance that can be made through this wonderful fund. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1052. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Senate Bill 80 by Senator Hill concerning the choice of Public Employees Retirement Association members to participate in the defined contribution plan established by the association.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I move Senate Bill 80. And colleagues, Senate Bill 80 is just expanding for those who are in the PARA system but aren't currently direct state employees. If you're hired by a para-affiliated employer right now, you may not.
Senator Hill, would you please move the committee report, Finance Committee report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Finance Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for the adoption of the committee report.
Any discussion?
You don't need to move that close to the mic. It ruins everything.
Seeing no discussion, those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Committee report's adopted. Senator Hill to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, the committee report discusses the somewhat partisan vote we took on Senate Bill 80. And Senate Bill 80 basically just expands. Right now, every single one of us in this building have an opportunity if you would like to choose. PARA's got a really just a fantastic program, a defined contribution benefit program. Unfortunately, that's not currently available to many other folks in the PARA system. And so this bill is very simple, non-complicated, non-controversial bill, as I'd like to hope in another life, that would open up defined contribution plans to others beyond just the state employees. So especially this would affect teachers and give them an opportunity to opt into a defined contribution plan.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to put on my serious face because I really want to do the Dr. Evil Pinky, because I feel like you have to acknowledge when amazing things are accomplished in this building. I have been on the Finance Committee for 5 years, and we see a lot of pretty big fiscal notes in the Finance Committee, and I've even passed a couple myself. But this is by far the most impressive fiscal note I've ever seen. This is the first time we've ever passed a fiscal note that doesn't start with M's but with B's. The fiscal impact in the state of this bill is $4.2 billion. Billion with a B. Now, I laugh a little bit because it is, it's nice to have a sense of humor on these things. But I do think, in all seriousness, we spent a lot of time over the last 5 years working to make PARA more solvent, which is something that everybody in this room, and I think the sponsor of this bill, is deeply committed to. And the challenge of this change is that it would dramatically reduce the holdings in a way that would decrease the stability of our long-term retirement fund. And so while I think there are good conversations to be had about the choices for retirees, I think a $4.2 billion impact on the PARA Trust Fund is probably ill-advised right now, so I would respectfully ask for no vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too would like to thank the sponsor, the esteemed senator from El Paso County, for the discussion around Senate Bill 80. However, I need to point out something that a lot of people forget, and that's that if you're an employee and you are on PARA, you are not covered under Social Security. You don't pay into Social Security. When you retire, you don't receive Social Security benefits. PARA, these public pensions, the defined benefits were never intended to be somebody's sole means of retirement, their sole income upon retirement. Social Security wasn't designed that way. It was designed to be a kind of a base for people, and then to have additional means on top of that. And so as we encourage people to move from a DB to a DC, we are weakening that base of retirement. And so at the end, what Senate Bill 80 does is it actually weakens the retirement system for hundreds of thousands of Coloradans, hundreds of thousands of people who either are currently on para-retirement benefits or are planning their retirement and someday will depend on these benefits. Another myth around defined contribution that I want to dispel is that DC plans cost less. That is a myth that's been out there. It's been perpetuated for quite a while, and as the overall attack against secure public employee pension plans continues around the country, it's a myth that gets a lot of support from certain quarters. DC plans do not cost less. In fact, we discussed as the people who came into committee to oppose this bill, and I want to make sure that you know it's important to understand who came in to support and oppose certain bills. We had 3 different people representing various organizations come in to oppose this bill, which is 3 more than we had coming in to support it. That's right, not one person testified in support of this bill. Not one. Not one para-employee or potential para-employee who desperately wants a DC plan came in to support this bill. But we had folks from para, from AARP, and also from the Colorado Coalition for Retirement Security, people who represent huge groups of retirees and soon-to-be retirees come in to oppose the bill. So I want to make sure that you know that. But also, there have been states that have gone from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan. West Virginia, Michigan, Alaska, and at least 2 of those states have reverse course, and the third, the third is looking at reversing course on that. So with that, I just want to make sure that we dispel some of the myths out there around defined contribution versus defined benefit, and also make sure that we are thinking about the hundreds of thousands of Coloradans who depend on para and depend on having a well-funded retirement plan in place.
Senator Lundberg. Further discussion on Senate Bill 80, Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I come down to support this bill, and very honestly, Mr. Chair, I have a hard time imagining why anyone would be opposed to allow employees that are not afforded this opportunity, as we legislators have been for many years. And let me approach this from 2 perspectives. One is the employee's side, to simply say, you choose. You pick what is best for you, what you think will work most appropriately, the defined benefit or the defined contribution. And again, I remind all who are listening to this, Mr. Chair, that we legislators have that prerogative. And there's from the last analysis I saw of a few years ago, kind of an even split between those who chose the defined contribution and the defined benefit plan. But let's talk about the state's side of it too, because the people of Colorado ultimately stand behind the retirement systems that para is administering. And so far, it's been able to keep its nose above water, but if you look at the actuarial numbers down the road, there is very likely possibility that we'll come up short, just like a lot of other states have found themselves in, and other public retirement plans of this sort. So to allow some employees to move by their own prerogative to the defined contribution side is to eliminate any future liability that the people of Colorado would have for those individual employees. This is really the best of both worlds and removes some of the potential liability that the people of Colorado will have in the future. It doesn't perpetuate, which unfortunately far too often becomes a bit of a Ponzi scheme, you know, where you're always relying on somebody else to come in and provide the funds for the outflow today. That's what Mr. Ponzi came up with, I think it was over 100 years ago now. To me, it's much more appropriate to allow individual employees to choose what they think is best, even as we legislators have been enjoying for years. I mean, I don't think we should be in a special category. I think this should be available to all under the PARA system. And as I say, this removes some future liability, probably a significant form, depending on how many take advantage of this. So who, or why, I should say, why should anyone be opposed to this type of option for employees and financial relief for the people of Colorado? It's a win-win.
Further discussion on Senate Bill 80. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I voted in favor of Senate Bill 80 and asked for an aye vote. As legislators, I think this has been mentioned, but we are that rare, narrow niche of state employees who are offered this option. Why did I choose the defined contribution plan? Well, at my age and with term limits, I knew that short of a Republican governor being elected sometime during my service and me being offered some well-paying appointment, I would never see the rule of, I think it's moved up 80, 85, 90. I would not benefit from a defined benefit program. The defined contribution program is what made sense for me and my family. So many of our constituents believe that we here in the legislature have some lifetime pension plan. Whether that's true or not for members of Congress, it certainly isn't true here, unless you are fully vested in PARA and then have a defined benefit plan. One of the things that I really have come to appreciate about PARA and PARA members during this session came from a meeting with PARA ambassadors that I had just recently. And their effort in trying to find what is true, an understanding of what is true. And I really appreciate that advocacy effort from members of PARA to help me understand their circumstances and what's true for them relative to me. I support Senate Bill 80 because I think it gives people who come to work for our state government who would be eligible for PARA the same option that I had, to look at my age, my potential service in the state government, and then to make the decision that's best for me. When I asked PARA representatives during the committee hearing, well, if defined contribution was an option, who would take it? Why would they take it? Why would they opt for this rather than the defined benefit contribution? There were concerns about people thinking that they could invest better than PARA and opting out of defined benefit and looking at defined contribution. Those were all kind of thoughts that I had not considered for myself. It was really just length of service and what would I qualify for. So I think under our current dynamic, what we're encouraging is people to come into state government and stay longer, which is not a bad motivation, but that ignores the opportunity for someone with expertise to come in and fill a position for a shorter period of time, like we have here in the legislature. No more than 8 years in one chamber. A maximum of 16 if your timeline happens to fall into that rare opportunity to serve 8 and 8 in both chambers. But if we have people out there in Colorado who might come to work for our state government who aren't looking to serve for decades, but maybe bring a level of expertise to a project, a particular need within our state government, what we're saying is, yes, you may only be here for a short period of time relative to all the other employees, 5 years maybe, 10. But what we want to offer you as a choice is be in the defined benefit program. That seems limiting. And to the prior conversation about the very large fiscal note, that's based on a guess. How many people would take this option? We don't know. We know right now that 0 of them outside of the legislature take this option because they don't have it. So for the majority of people who come to work for our state government, if they're younger in age, looking at a longer career, I can understand why their option to go into the defined benefit program makes sense for them. But let's recognize that the paradigm that we are offering people right now is somewhat exclusive or less appealing to people who might work for our state government for a shorter period of time. And I think that it's that kind of choice that we need to allow diversity and dynamic opportunities for people who come to work for the state of Colorado who would qualify for para. Let's give them that option. For someone like me, I'm now 54. I can't serve long enough in the legislature. If I serve my maximum term in this chamber, run again, if I'm elected, I'll be 61 when I leave, and I'll have 12 years of service. That just doesn't get me to where I would need to be with a defined benefit program. So therefore, the defined contribution program made sense for me. Let's allow that choice for everyone who comes to work for the state of Colorado and would qualify for para.
Further discussion, Minority Leader Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we have a retirement security crisis in America. We have a retirement security crisis in Colorado. The number of people who can plan and retire with even modest security is radically declining and has continued to do so. The problem with Senate Bill 80 is it takes us the wrong direction. Senate Bill 80 reduces retirement security. How does it do that? It puts us in a direction where retirees are no longer able to know how much they'll get for how long. That is the definition of insecurity. It ties the fate and the security of their retirement to the whims and the fates of Wall Street. We have seen before when someone's life savings, life earnings, and life work, when they work hard their entire life, and we want to push this towards a less secure gamble that has the net effect, as you'll see on page 3 of the fiscal note, of increasing the unfunded liability of para by 2044 by $4.2 billion. And I'm glad one of my colleagues can laugh about it, but systemically, we're increasing the unfunded liability of para with this bill by $4.2 billion. We are tying the fate of thousands and thousands of hardworking Coloradans to the whims and tides of Wall Street. So at the end of the day, when no employees and no retirees are showing up asking for this, and everybody that I know of that is fighting for seniors, for the right to have a dignified and secure retirement, are in opposition to this bill, it increases the unfunded liability of para for the state and makes ordinary, hardworking Coloradans in the state of Colorado less secure than today. And for those reasons, I really can't understand why we would want to pass Senate Bill 80, but would respectfully urge a no vote.
Further discussion, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I rise in support of Senate Bill 80, and I do so kind of hoping some of my para-ambassador friends in Southwest Colorado are actually listening or watching, because we have spent a lot of time together during the interim, and part of that is I was on a bill that had to do with para in the past, and experienced the para beneficiary buzzsaw that happened, and so we tried to make an effort improving the communication link between para beneficiaries across the state who might not be here every day to know what the thinking is and supporting or not a bill. So we have been having some great dialogue, and we have literally spent lots of hours together to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, and that we're talking about when proposals are put out here at the legislature, that we have that robust discussion, not just inside the Capitol, but with the people back home. And we have built up trust that didn't exist before, in the sense that at least we're communicating. The reason I like Senate Bill 80 is this is exactly what I was asked to address a couple years ago when I was on a bill that had to do with trying to introduce more financial independence and expertise on the board. That's not what this bill is. This is a bill about choice. It is about having the beneficiary drive it, and very clearly in the bill it says any active member of the association may choose to go in this direction of a defined contribution plan. When I started here at the legislature, chose the defined contribution approach. And I will tell you personally, it made me much more responsible in evaluating. When I get my para statements in the mail, I look at it. I recognize that I am making choices and driving the future of my retirement monies here. So there is no compelling of anybody into the DC plan. I also know that there is concern. It'll have some effect in terms of what the para board is doing in terms of investments. That's okay. I think that we have some good people there, clearly lots of experts on financial investments, so an adjustment would be made. But I personally found it, for me, to make me more aware of, more conscious of what was going on with my own retirement funds. Again, because I see this truly as a choice of the individual, I think it's a good bill. And I am glad that the emails have not been flooding into my inbox in immediate opposition to this. I hope that people contemplate it. I certainly had, in that past experience, teachers who contacted me and said, I want that choice. I at least want to be able to be advised in a realistic way, like other state employees. What are my options? And that's what this bill does. I support Senate Bill 80 and thank the good senator from El Paso County for bringing it.
Further discussion, Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to make it perfectly clear that my intention when it comes to legislation dealing with para is to ensure that we fulfill our commitment to every person who is in that program. I believe that this is a trust that we, the state of Colorado, have made with those, don't know the exact number, hundreds of thousands of people across the state who have devoted much of their life to the various levels of government and jurisdictions within the state of Colorado that rely on the security that para is supposed to provide. And I support this bill because I believe that it is some of the solutions we need to a system that, by actuarial standards, is somewhere between $25 and $40 billion short in the long run. Now, they're paying the bills today, but if you just project this out, you discover a severe problem. We must find solutions. It's not working well. We've got to find some solutions that will work well. Part of this bill is to minimize that future liability so that we can start to get our arms around that, but only with those people who choose the defined contribution system. Now, I admit that I had to look at this when I entered the legislature 12, 13 years ago. And for myself, I determined that the defined contribution plan was the best for myself. And not only because it good for my family, but I saw it as a responsibility as a legislator to not be dependent upon the future direction of para. I didn't want to be influenced by asking myself, what is this going to do to my future years? So I took the defined contribution side of it. There are thousands of people across Colorado who have their own consideration on why defined contribution might be better than defined benefit. This bill simply says you've got that choice. It makes every sense in the world to move forward in this direction. It's good policy management for the state as a whole, and it's very good policy management for the individual employees to give them the choice, to give them the option, to let them decide for themselves rather than giving them this determined outcome. I don't believe the people of Colorado should be treated as people who can't handle their own affairs. No, let's give them this much authority as well. Vote yes.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support this bill because I think they do, they should be considered that option, but I just don't think that we have all the information we need to make this decision. Walker Stapleton, the Secretary of Treasury, still has this situation on trying to get more information for para, and I think we need to be completely transparent about this. I'm going to be a yes vote on this, but I will tell you that until all the information and the transparency comes clean on this, it's going to be very difficult to make that decision. So I would urge the Secretary of the Treasury to go ahead and get this finalized with the information in which he requested, and so we know exactly what we're dealing with. But until that time, I'll be a yes vote on this because I do think the option is, it's just that, it's an option. The good senator spoke up here a minute ago about the three oppositions, the three oppositions and nobody for, and I really don't. I have not heard anything up here to convince me that that we should oppose it. So thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm extremely glad to hear from everyone that's spoken today that at the end of this debate, whether they support or oppose Senate Bill 80, that everyone is extremely concerned in making sure that para and retirement benefits are there for the hardworking state troopers, the hardworking teachers, the hardworking folks in our judicial system, and that we are making sure that it is fully funded for the people who are working right now, but also the people that are going to retire either soon or in the future. We've done a lot of work on para over the last few years. 5 years ago, Senate Bill 1 really shifted the way when para was actually in a very precarious situation, and we set it on a new course, which has been successful over the last 5 years, and I believe we need to continue with that. And it's been said that we need to try new things and new ideas. I agree. If there are new ideas and something that has evidence that works, we should not be just trying things either that we have evidence that does not work or we have no evidence that does work. we should not be doing those things with something as important as people's retirements. So in that spirit, I want to let you know the evidence that we have from states that have gone from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan. I mentioned West Virginia earlier. West Virginia has a teacher's retirement system, their TRS. It was traditionally a defined benefit plan. It was historically underfunded. Teachers always made their own contributions. The state and a lot of the county school boards often failed to make their full contributions. So back in from 79 through the 80s, there was a lot of discussion of what to do. So to address the problem in 1991, the state closed the TRS and moved newly hired teachers into a defined contribution plan. Teachers in the defined benefit plan were given a one-time choice to move to the DC plan as well. So here we're talking, okay, new hires are going into the DC, the defined benefit teachers were given the choice to move over. And so the question is, well, this is good for the new teachers, this is good, they get to make their own choices, so there's no effect to the people already on the defined benefit plan. West Virginia later found, however, that this funding solution had overlooked some important considerations around new members not starting with unfunded obligations for existing members didn't get reduced, and as a result, the loss of new members makes it more difficult to finance the unfunded obligations of the defined benefit plan. So, in other words, with the plans having shifted, the TRS demographics shifted quickly. By 2005, TRS paid pension benefits to nearly 27,000 retired teachers, while less than 18,000 active teachers still contributed to the fund. The plan's funding level stood at just 25%. Meanwhile, the defined contribution plan was faring poorly as well. The members who had opted to transfer from the DB to the DC plan in '91 found it hard to retire after the early 2000s. I think all of us with investments remember that bear market pretty well, and reduced the values of all of the teachers' accounts. While the state contributed 7.5% of salary to members' DC accounts, supplemented by a mandatory 4.5% employee contribution, account balances were too low to provide an adequate retirement income. And as of April 30th, 2005, the average account balance was just $41,000, and only 105 of the 1,700 teachers over age 60 had balances over $100,000. I don't know about you, but I would not want to be contemplating retirement with a retirement account balance of $41,000. So this was largely due to the fact that DC member accounts had achieved much lower investment returns than the TRS. Between 2001 and 2010, for example, the average West Virginia defined benefit return was 1.6 higher than the average defined contribution return. Let me say that again. The average defined benefit return was 1.6% higher than the average DC return. By 2003, the state began re-examining the switch, and after studying the issue extensively, it found that the normal cost for TRS, the cost of benefits accrued in a single year, was roughly half of the required employer contribution to the DC plan. In other words, providing equivalent benefits would be far less expensive under the defined benefit structure than in the defined contribution plan. As a result, the state decided that starting in 2005, all new hires would go back into the defined benefit plan. So as we talk about finding new and better ways of securing retirement for the people of Colorado, we should be looking at the evidence that we have. The evidence is clear. Shifting from a defined benefit to a defined contribution is a bad idea. And it not only impacts the people under the defined contribution, the evidence shows that they end up more at risk in their retirement, but it also impacts the people who stay on the defined benefit plan. And with that, I just once again want to highlight the fiscal note. When we talk about the fiscal note, and again, it's been brought up that this is only good for the DC people and it won't impact the DB people. When we're talking about $4.2 billion on this fiscal note that says that para will be put further at risk, the people under the defined benefit plan who stay under the defined benefit plan will be put further at risk to the tune of $4.2 billion. I see that as a risk that our retirees in Colorado are not willing to take.
Further discussion, Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm pretty sure how this debate is going to turn out in the end. So I just have one very simple question. I'm kind of puzzled as to those who come to the microphone and bemoaned the possibility of para becoming insolvent and their concern about the unfunded liability, and yet we have a piece of legislation that increases that liability by $4 billion, and then they are supporting making this change. I honestly am having difficulty understanding the equation there, so I would like to have that explained to me if it's possible.
Is there Senator Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I don't want to, I know we started this off with somewhat of a lighter conversation, and we certainly enjoyed that. We had a great conversation about that, about this in Finance Committee as well. One of the things I love about that committee, appreciate the chance to have this discussion. You know, those who oppose this bill bring up some critical points, some important points, and there's some valid points there too. Does this change the stability of para? It does. Admittedly, it does. Unfortunately, right now, I think we can all agree, para has its own problems. Between, depending on how you want to run the numbers, a $25 to $40 billion unfunded liability. So the notion right now that para is this bastion of stability is unfortunately ill-founded. I think there's a parallel discussion that we had recently about another policy area that would shed some light on this. And that was the discussion we had about school choice and charters here in Colorado, where it actually is. It's more stable to have your neighborhood school and everyone goes there and you know exactly where you're going to go. Yes, that is more stable. It's more predictable. But we've also found more and more that didn't fit everyone's needs. It didn't meet the unique individual requirements that each and every one of our families, each and every one of our kids, and quite frankly, each and every one of our teachers have to find that right environment, that right mix, that right opportunity for education. And that's what we're doing here now. I hear that I'm taking away dignity. And colleagues, dignity's always been a big deal to me. And I'm not taking anything away here. I'm giving an option. I'm giving a choice. No one chooses on their own to pick something that doesn't work for them. No one chooses it. If we want to go down the path of saying we can't trust people to make their own decisions, colleagues, we've got to go down the path of saying we can't trust them with freedom of speech, we can't trust them with freedom of religion, we can't trust the freedom of the press. We've never been in this country about this notion of just perfect stability, about we can't trust people to make decisions that may not be ideal for them looking back. Every one of us can probably look back and say we've learned as much or more from the decisions we've made that didn't fit well as those that did. All we're doing is giving people the opportunity here to have some more choice, some more opportunity for how they want to fund their retirement. We heard in committee that right now in para, you've got 5 years before the state will contribute anything to this. Colleagues, for people who want to come and be a part of para just for a couple of years, the defined benefit plan makes no sense for them. It doesn't work for them. We are penalizing those who want to come and be a part of para just for a couple of years. Maybe it's that teacher out there who wants to come and teach for a couple of years before she starts school, or that teacher wants to come and teach for a couple of years before he goes back to grad school. We need more options and not less. We talk about how hard it is to recruit good teachers. We hear again and again and again. If perhaps the lack of flexibility on retirement is a reason for one teacher, even if it's just one teacher, not to be able to come and make the numbers work out for them, this helps us in our path to finding those right teachers, recruiting and retaining those good teachers. Colleagues, this is not doing anything other than giving a choice that already exists to the rest of us. For those that would like to argue that this is taking away dignity, then they need to argue that every single one of us who have chosen a defined contribution plan have lost some dignity. I don't see that to be the case. I know the good senator from Denver would like to think that I've lost some dignity by growing a beard and choosing a defined contribution plan. But in all seriousness, colleagues, every single one of us makes these choices. Every single one of us has this balancing act we've got to do in our own lives to figure out what works best for us and our families. And to suggest that this shouldn't be available to every single other person out there who works for a para affiliate, to me, it is an unfair characterization that they can't make these choices. It is true that your benefits are greater if you stay through until retirement. You hit that certain point in a defined benefit plan. And colleagues, quite frankly, that's part of the reason we have such an unfunded liability in para, because those benefits are so great, they're so stable, and as lifespans have extended, we don't have the money. The model is not there to fully fund that. That's why we did Senate Bill 1 a couple of years ago. This is another fix to say, rather than down the road where we've got to force everyone into a plan, we've got to force and cut all these benefits, this says, let's give people the chance to start on the right footing, on the area that works best for them. I'm asking for your support on Senate Bill 80 as a chance to expand current options for those looking to make their own decisions about the circumstances of their retirement.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 80. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 13, 2015, Mr. President, your committee of the whole brings you reports out of consideration of the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 80 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered and gross placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1052 passed on second reading and ordered revised, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bills 122, 139, and 135 laid over until February 17, 2015, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there further discussion on the committee of the whole report? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 1580, as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1052 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 15122, Senate Bill 15139, Senate Bill 15135 laid over until February 17, 2015, and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Majors.
Senate Bill 159 by Senator Lambert and Representative Hamner concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Public Safety.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 159 lay over to February 17.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 159 will lay over until February 17th. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 165.
Senate Bill 165 by Senator Lambert, Representative Hamner, concerning funding for capital construction and making supplemental appropriations in connection therewith.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I vote that the Senate concur with House amendments.
Colleagues, we are on official business here. Could we quiet down a little bit and pay attention? Senator Lambert, I wasn't talking about you.
May I speak?
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. Okay, I move that the Senate concur with House amendments on Senate Bill 165.
Why should we do that?
Good question, Mr. President. The Senate Bill 165 was the supplemental bill for capital construction. This is a technical change. It's about a $4 million technical change, but what happened was that we were moving some money from one pot of money, capital development, over into OIT. It's just basically a true up of the technical change that we had intended the first time that's in your supplemental books. So I would ask for an aye vote on concurrence.
Is there further discussion on concurrence with House amendments to Senate Bill 165? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Senate concurs with House amendments to Senate Bill 165. Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for readoption of Senate Bill 165.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Senate readopts Senate Bill 165. Co-sponsors. Senator Kafalis. Apparently the bill is much better now. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 166.
Senate Bill 166 by Senator Stedman and Representative Hamner, concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2014-15 budget year and in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 166.
Please tell us why.
The House amendment to Senate Bill 166 corrects a typographical error where 2 digits were transposed in a dollar figure. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Senate concurs with House amendments to Senate Bill 166. Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of Senate Bill 166. And colleagues, just to remind you, I think just about every single one of you co-sponsored the bill when it went through the first time, but this is the bill that lowers the negative factor by $14 million. So this is your last chance.
Is there further discussion on the challenge to support Senate Bill 166? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 166 is readopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Kafalis. Senator Heath. Senator Kerr. Senator Ulibarri. Senator Merrifield. Senator John. Senator Newell. Senator Todd. Senator Crowder. Minority Leader Carroll. Senator Garcia. Senator Johnston. Senator Roberts. Senator Baumgardner. Senator Cook. Senator Martinez-Humenick. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Neville. Senator Woods. Senator Guzman. Senator Scott. Committee reports.
February 12, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 134 be postponed indefinitely. February 12, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 120 be postponed indefinitely. February 12, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 93 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. February 12, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy has under consideration as at a hearing on the following appointment and recommends the appointment be confirmed. Executive Director of the Department of Agriculture, effective February 17, 2015, for a term expiring at the pleasure of the Governor, Donald Cleo Brown of Yuma, Colorado, and occasioned by the resignation of John Salazar of Manassas, Colorado, appointed. February 12, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 64 be amended as follows and as amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Announcements. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just want to let those of you who know that I left abruptly yesterday know that my father's surgery was successful. He's doing well, and I thank you for all your understanding with my absences this year.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize a military veteran and actually, I think, active duty reservist, Commander Jim Chapman, who is a chaplain in the Navy and gave the morning prayer over in the House. Commander Chapman.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. Also, if you could all get your applications, if anybody is not a member of the Civil Air Patrol, please give me your applications for the Civil Air Patrol before you leave today. I'm going to try to mail those in to Buckley this afternoon. Don't do it for me, do it for Mom, okay?
No.
And Mr. President, also, the members of the Joint Budget Committee, I just wanted to announce, are starting their second quarter. Right now, yesterday was hump day, so our session is halfway over.
Sounds more like the second half than the second quarter. But why would I correct a JBC member? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be a Southwest Chief Commissioners meeting at 11 o'clock. The location has been changed. It's going to be on the 6th floor over at 1525 Sherman. This is something that what I'd like to do is invite anybody and everybody over there to see how well they're doing. And there'll be a bill forthcoming for the railroad, so this will give you a chance to get an idea of what's going on. Thank you.
Further announcements? Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, let me remind you that today is the day that we've already done, and we are preparing to do it again. If you did not wear dark clothing, it's too late. Today will be the day of the recreation. We'll do that upon adjournment, so you might want to start taking off your badges and clearing your tables, your desks for the photograph. Please, nobody leave. And Mr. President, let me take this opportunity to thank you as President of the Senate for having opined on presidential issues and matters peculiar to the President of the Senate, and let our colleagues know on behalf of the Senate and you, Mr. President, that we will not be here on President's Day, pun fully intended.
Perhaps there should be a vote.
Done and done, Mr. President. So, colleagues, do remember that we are not here on Monday. So with that, I move that the Senate adjourn to 10 a.m. Tuesday, February 17th.
You have heard the motion that the Senate adjourn until the day after President's Day. Tuesday, February 17th at 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will be adjourned until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 17th.